I think it may just be people say, can we find Trumpism without having to deal with the baggage, with all of the drama of Donald Trump?
Whether it's the recent hearings or his absence from social media, Donald Trump's numbers appear to be in freefall. Now, I'm going to get to this poll and show you some other recent polls, but before I even get to this, yes, this is still early. I will stipulate this is one poll that I'm focusing on in particular, but this does give you an indication of where the party is likely headed, considering some other data points that I'm going to share with you as well. So, at the end of this video, I will also discuss what Democrats need to do, considering the direction the party is going. But first here, this is the poll I'm going to focus on in this video, a recent University of New Hampshire poll from the Survey Center. So, several data points to share here. First, this is the first choice GOP 2024 presidential candidate among likely GOP primary voters in New Hampshire, which again, important state here, as this is the second voting state in the primary, so it often sets the stage for the rest of the race. But you see here, back in July 2021, Ron DeSantis was down at 19%, with Trump way ahead at 47%. Then in October, DeSantis actually down to 18%, with Trump also down a bit at 43%. But then, look at this month, June 2022. DeSantis now ahead of Trump by 2 points at 39%, and Trump down at 37%. So what we are seeing here is a consistent trend downward for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, DeSantis makes a massive jump from October 2021 to now leading Donald Trump. And some other important data points also indicate this shift towards DeSantis. So DeSantis is hoovering up cash from the party's donor class, including the support of at least 42 billionaires. The most telling fact about the New Hampshire poll is that while DeSantis leads Trump by just 2 points overall, he leads among Fox News watchers by 14 points, and among conservative radio listeners by 16 points. Republicans who consume conservative media are getting the message. The voters who are not yet tuned in to conservative media may still name Trump in polls, but they are likely to follow. And this, I think, is a very important point and an indication of where the base is headed. So this is what often leads. The people that are most tuned in to conservative media are the ones that give you the greatest indication of where the rest of the party is going to move. So right now, that base is even further ahead in support of DeSantis over Donald Trump. And of course, other polls indicate this as well. So DeSantis beats Trump in conservative group straw poll. So a recent straw poll for the nomination, Denver poll indicates Trump is losing grip on Republican Party as DeSantis wins 71% of the vote to Trump's 67%. Another data point here showing the support moving towards DeSantis. Also, that same poll last year also had DeSantis ahead. So this is from 2021, from June. DeSantis at 74%, Donald Trump at 71%. So again, showing a downward trend for Donald Trump, sitting at 67. And to be fair, DeSantis also down a few points from 74, but likely because of some other people that were in the poll that were also, maybe gaining some attention. But still, DeSantis ahead here, while Trump is consistently going down in these polls. Also, Trump, of course, before I get to any other clips and analysis of this, Trump did not like this poll from New Hampshire, as the same day he shares poll of him crushing DeSantis as rumors swirl over the challenge. So he went on Truth Social, or as he calls it, Troth Central? But here it is. He posted on Truth Social. New Zogby poll. So showing Trump at 54% with DeSantis at 12%. Now, my understanding is this is an online poll, an online opinion poll. I'm not quite sure how reliable that is compared to a reputable place like the University of New Hampshire and their survey center here. But of course, Trump is, I think, a little worried, and it's really going to be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out. If DeSantis is ever going to try and hit Trump back, because so far it's been Trump doing things like this, very passive aggressive, just tweeting out a single poll of him leading here. But DeSantis has been silent. He recently gave a speech at a big conservative convention, didn't mention Trump at all in that speech, and was speaking at that speech as sort of on a national level in terms of how he was directing his comments. So far, DeSantis ignoring Trump. We will see if that continues. But first here, some analysis from Chris Wallace, former Fox News host here on CNN.
I think it may just be people say, can we find Trumpism without having to deal with the baggage, with all of the drama of Donald Trump? And, if you were casting about for a Trump alternative, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who has a lot of the same policies and a lot of the same bravado, but not a lot of the same baggage, might be a pretty good choice.
Well, I think that raises the question of what we're going to see in this field coming up when it comes to Republicans, this idea that people believe that Trump is going to run and potentially, be up against a Ron DeSantis, a close ally of his, a Pence and that. And so if you're Trump and you're seeing this poll, what does that mean for you going forward?
Well, I mean, nothing immediately. First of all, it's only 2 points. It's within the margin of error. It's 2 years out. Trump doesn't lack for self-confidence. But, you do have to wonder, I mean, what's the dirtiest word in Donald Trump's lexicon? Loser. And the idea that, despite what he said, he was a loser to Joe Biden. Now he could be a loser a second time and maybe, not even get to the NCAA finals. He doesn't even get to the Final Four. He's busted in New Hampshire or something like that. If you're the president or the former president and you can't, you were to lose in some of the early primaries. I mean, that is one of the questions I have about Trump is if he comes into 23 and late into 23 and decides, there's a real chance I could lose in some of these primaries, will he have the stomach for that?
Look, we've had this same conversation multiple times now. 2016, he's going to lose. Is he even going to run? Why is he even going to bother? Why does he want to be, humiliated publicly? 2020, is he going to run? Maybe he'll step down because he's going to lose against Biden. Of course, he won in 2016. In 2020, he just doesn't accept the loss. He claims he won. Why would that be any different this time? I'm really leaning towards, I think Trump is going to run regardless, unless he legally can't. And even then, he may still try to run. Like, if Merrick Garland actually follows through with anything, he'll still try to run. And then, claim that it was rigged against him when he loses. So that's my feeling on this. I don't think Trump is all that calculated in terms of, thinking about his public perception if he loses, because again, it's about what he puts out there. He doesn't care what the reality is. He cares about how he is perceived, and he tries to manipulate that perception as much as possible by making outlandish claims that have no basis in reality. Now, I'll get to some more data points and from this poll and some more clips, and of course my analysis on what Democrats should do with all of this. But this data point here from the same poll, net favorability among GOP voters in New Hampshire. Ron DeSantis, 66% net favorability. Trump down 20 points at 46%. Again, another indicator here of where the party is going. And now let me get to a quick clip here from a Republican lawmaker. This is Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska, and he's now being very public about how he feels about the idea of Trump running again.
You got to respect the results. Otherwise, we lose what we got.
Do you think that Trump should run again? And would you support him if he did?
Well, I was asked this on one of your friendly news channels the other day. I prefer, when it comes to the primary, I will not be supporting him. I'll be looking for better candidates. I want to win in our district. We lost our district by 8 points at the presidential level, and I ended up winning mine by 5, roughly. And so I think we should be looking for someone who can win in the suburban areas. And
you don't think he can?
Didn't show it this last time.
So up until now, largely any opposition towards Trump within the actual party within Congress has been from people that are going to retire. Don Bacon, from my understanding, is not retiring. He's going to continue running for a seat, keeping a seat. And he is now being publicly putting out the message there that it's time to move on from Donald Trump. again, another indicator here in terms of where he sees the party going. He knows his voters. He is reading the room. He understands the support for Trump is dropping, especially, I think, considering they have somebody potentially, waiting there in the wings with Ron DeSantis. So why is he going to continue supporting Trump if he sees the party base moving in a different direction? So being public about this now, I think, shows you that the party is becoming more willing to move on from Donald Trump. Now, another point here from this poll, this is should GOP leaders follow Trump or go in another direction? Again, among likely GOP primary voters in New Hampshire. And you see here, overall, and in every category, the majority of Republican voters say continue going in the direction of Trump, meaning not Trump specifically, the person, but just what Trump is doing in terms of how he speaks, the cultural impact he has, policies, of course, which really is no different, much different than previous Republican presidents. But they like Trumpism. They like this outlandish, racist, xenophobic, bigoted, terrible direction that the party has now openly embraced. Of course, the party always had that element, but now it's sort of the face of the party, publicly the face of the party, and it's just more overt, and they enjoy this. This is what they want. This is what the party wants to continue seeing, and Ron DeSantis can offer that to them as well without having all the baggage of Donald Trump. Now let me get to another clip here. This is from MSNBC with another data point. As you see here, Biden versus Trump versus DeSantis versus Biden.
I've been saying this nonstop now, and it is so important for people to understand this. And in fact, as somebody that's very close to Trump, I tried to get this message across to them 6 months ago when they said, do you think if he ran again, he could win? I said no, because as I've said before, the people Donald Trump lost between 2016 and 2020, they're gone forever. They may never vote for Biden. They may hate everything Joe Biden's doing. But like I always say about the Biden-Youngkin voters in those focus groups, they will trash Joe Biden's policies, but they will say in the last answer they don't regret their vote. Here's a perfect example of that. Joe Biden upside down in New Hampshire. Joe Biden upside down in most swing states. You look at Maggie Hassan. She's in for the fight of her life because how unpopular Joe Biden is in New Hampshire right now. But just as Ron Johnson, just as Ron Johnson and just as other Republicans have said, the only Republican that could have lost in 2020 was Donald Trump. And here we see the same thing playing out. Votes that Donald Trump lost, he's not getting back. There's no way to get the swing voters in North Atlanta, in New Hampshire, in the suburbs of Philly. They're gone forever. And I just wonder if the Republican Party is going to figure that out.
Now, while Morning Joe's analysis and MSNBC and CNN and mainstream press in general, while their analysis of the Democratic Party is often way off base, they often downplay the popularity of things like progressive policy, like Medicare for all. Their analysis on the Republican Party and their base is usually on point, and I think this is correct. The voters that Trump already lost in 2020, why would they come back and vote for him again in a primary when they have another option without the baggage? That is very much like Trump in Ron DeSantis. So I do think Joe Scarborough is correct to point out that those voters in those states that lost Trump the election in 2020, I think those people are gone. And looking at that data point, it is incredible, not in a good way, to see that Ron DeSantis is actually ahead of Joe Biden in a general election matchup in New Hampshire. So look, I'm going to get to what the Democratic Party needs to do, considering all this information. I think part of it is obvious. Joe Biden should not run again, but I'll get to how to potentially challenge him. But one last piece here. This is from, what's his name? Frank Luntz, conservative pollster. He's on CNN discussing this poll as well.
And, look at this poll. This is not going to be something Trump wants to see. Ron DeSantis, 39%, Trump, 37%. And obviously that DeSantis is the assumption right now, the greatest threat to Trump when it comes to the Republican Party?
It's more than a threat. The governor's proving that his approach and what he's trying to accomplish and what he has accomplished in Florida is more significant. And Republicans are now saying it's time to move on. Make no mistake, Donald Trump is the most popular political figure within the Republican Party. But there is now a specific challenger, and Trump can yell and scream and send out his emails. I'm on his list. And they're all emotional, and they're all meant to blow things up. But they're having less and less of an impact with every single month.
All right, so I'll get to what I think Democrats need to do with all this information. But first here, I do think Frank Luntz is correct. And part of the reasoning, I think anyways, is that Trump is largely off of social media. Sure, he has Truth Social, but doesn't quite have the reach that Twitter does. And because he isn't always in, the minds of voters, he isn't on television all the time as he was when he was president. And you have these hearings, you have all this negative news coverage around Trump, and voters see an alternative in a younger version of Trump without the baggage in Ron DeSantis. There's no need to continue supporting the same guy if they think they can be successful with somebody else. And as I showed you, a lot of data is showing that Ron DeSantis would be successful against Joe Biden, which is why Joe Biden cannot run again. Yet he will. His ego will make him run again, even though he said when he first ran in the primary, he said he wasn't sure about a second term, that this would maybe just be a one-term thing and he wouldn't run again. Well, apparently that was a lie. He does want to run again. And it's all purely based on ego because there is no actual reason. Biden has wanted to be president his entire life. And now that he is doing very little with that power. How can you want to run, or how can you want to be president your whole life, but you have no plan, no idea of who you actually want to be, what you actually want to accomplish once you have that power? For all of these people, so much of it is just about the accomplishment, about the label. That's it. They don't think further ahead because they don't actually care about helping people. That is not what is driving them. Maybe at one point that's what drove them when they were younger and first got into politics. But by the end of their careers, people like Joe Biden, people like Hillary Clinton, they are no longer motivated by this desire to help people. It then just becomes this, I want the label, I want to be the president, and they will do what they think they need to do to win, which for them often means raising a lot of corporate dollars, listening to corporate donors, doing nothing for the actual working class, doing nothing for the actual base. And we have seen how that has failed again and again. And the only reason why Biden was able to win in 2020 was, I think, because of COVID. I think almost any Democratic candidate could have beat Trump in 2020 because of the state of society at that point. But that guarantee is out the door when it comes to 2024. And another reason why a lot of Democratic voters moved towards Biden in the primary in 2020 was because they wanted a return to something familiar, like Barack Obama. So they were familiar with Biden. They were comfortable with him. Voting for him, having him as president to them is like a warm hug, a familiar warm hug. Well, that familiarity of that warm hug has now worn off. It's not going to carry him in a second term. Biden has to be challenged. Regardless of what he decides to do, there has to be a rigorous Democratic primary for 2024. And there has to be, at least at the start, many candidates challenging him as a way to legitimize that challenge. So if Biden runs again, which it sounds like he's going to, you have to have Bernie Sanders, maybe John Fetterman. I know, he isn't senator yet, but he may be. And I know it's early, but still, we're talking about people that could actually, I think, win on a national level. So Bernie Sanders, John Fetterman, even someone like Nina Turner, who doesn't have a position in Congress, but I think would be a strong voice. Jamie Raskin, Katie Porter. These are all names that need to throw, even Elizabeth Warren, who I'm not, the biggest fan of, largely because of how she treated 2020, that primary. But get all these names in as a way to legitimize the challenge against Joe Biden. Because if you have just one person, say it's, Nina Turner, the media is not going to care. They're not really going to pay attention. They'll treat it as, some vanity project. But if you have multiple lawmakers, especially sitting lawmakers, sitting Democrats, challenging the sitting president for the nomination, that then legitimizes that idea that, hey, maybe Biden shouldn't be the guy to head up the next election on the ticket for Democrats. So, what needs to happen and what will happen are unfortunately likely very different things, because we have not seen this willingness from Democratic lawmakers to actually challenge power within their party. There is, as much as I want to see it, I think there is almost a 0% chance of someone like Jamie Raskin or Katie Porter challenging Joe Biden, and even Bernie Sanders. As he has said, he is not going to challenge. He's already said it, that, if Biden's running, he's going to support Joe Biden. That is the wrong thing to do. They have to understand this is not about them. It's not about Joe Biden. It's about the reality of what is going to happen if Biden runs against someone like Ron DeSantis. Biden will absolutely lose against Ron DeSantis. They have to realize that. People like Bernie, people like Fetterman, people like Jamie Raskin, Katie Porter, they have to realize that because Biden is going to lose in an attempt at a second term, it is their responsibility to try and prevent that from happening. That is on them. And challenging Biden isn't going to weaken Biden. This idea that primaries weaken the candidate, it is so stupid. What actually weakens a candidate is running against nobody, is having no challenge, is not having that candidate attempt to be the best version of themselves. At the very least, a challenge to Biden will make him try, at least attempt to maybe rise to the moment, maybe while president, have him do something as he is seeing that challenge from the left. Maybe then cancel student debt. Maybe then take cannabis out of a Schedule I drug. Maybe then use some of his executive power to actually accomplish something. But without that challenge, without that worry, there is no pressure on him to do anything. They have to challenge him. And you see here with someone like DeSantis, there is no chance that Biden will win a second term if DeSantis is at the top of the GOP ticket.